Hi, I'm Chris from TJB Services and Savings. I just want to show you what our free savings report looks like and show you what we can produce for your club in terms of highlighting ways in which you can reduce your energy consumption and also save in certain pinch point areas, ultimately looking to make you more greener as a club, reduce your carbon footprint, but also make you financially more sustainable and also profitable. So our starting point would be to show you how to reduce your electricity consumption or your electricity reliance from the grid by 70%. Typically, that's achieved in two ways. The first way, we can show you a number of strategies to reduce your current electricity consumption, but also show you a pathway to obviously generate your own electricity if you've got an appetite to do that. We can show you a size of solar system that you might want to employ relative to your data. A lot of clubs that we work with haven't got the funds necessarily to engage in that, but we can make you aware of a number of different ways you might be able to look at grant funding to support that and mean that you're not having to invest your own money, but can save considerable sums. We'll plug in your data and show you what your current annual electricity cost is, which you should know, but after the efficiency measures, where that electricity cost would come down to. And then finally, if you were to put both the efficiency strategies in place and also look at generating your own energy, where you might bring that overall cost of electricity down to for yourselves. These are the different areas in which we can look at. So the first four being energy specific and would show you, like on the previous slide, show you the pathway to reduce your electricity consumption. And then three areas which are more pinch point areas that we commonly see with sports clubs. So merchant services or card machine costs. Often clubs are paying high rates or could be on old tariffs, or maybe aren't fully aware of quite the low charges that you can now get. So we can give you feedback on that. Beer waste relating to pre and post line cleaning and trying to minimize the amount of beer that you throw away. And then financial rebates. A lot of clubs have the ability to claim VAT or certain financial rebates on certain products or times from COVID that can give you a one-off decent financial rebate to claim for the club. We'll plug in your data. So in this example from the aptly named Anonymous Sports Club, they're on a 25p per kilowatt hour tariff for their electricity, but we'll always put in what the current market 1 year fixed rate is. Just in case you are coming towards the end of a tariff, you can see what your savings would be on what currently is the market rate that you would go on. So starting point for us would always be looking at your cellar. The cellar, in our experience, is the number one highest energy consumer for any sports club. Typically, that will come from your cellar fan that's designed to obviously keep your cellar chilled to 12 degrees, because that's the temperature that the beer should be kept at, 12 degrees in the keg. But there is a lot of, there is some efficiency tech out there that allows you to minimize the amount of electricity consumption that cellar fan will have for you. And typically your savings on this technology would be around about 6,000 kilowatt hours a year. So on these particular rates at 25p, that would be a saving of around about £1,250. The technology is only £1,200. So again, you know, your return on investment is very good, but because it is energy efficiency stuff, it is also something that you could look to get grant funding for and mean that there's relatively little cost to you, but you would make these savings. The principle of the technology is that the keg acts as a thermos flask. So how much that cellar fan kicks in and works can be minimized because of that insulating aspect of the keg. and effectively allows you to reduce the amount of consumption that your condensing unit in your fan uses or works for, but allows you to make sure that the beer still stays at that 12 degrees and there's no change in terms of the quality of how you're storing your beer and serving your beer. Similar to your cellar fan, your chiller, which your beer lines are plugged into, can also run a lot more efficiently. Your chiller will be on all the time, 24 hours a day. You can program that chiller to be off outside operating hours, but there's a piece of tech that will sporadically kick in and kick out, or make that chiller kick in and kick out, so that the temperature within the chiller maintains the ice block that's in there. So there's no melting of it, but it reduces, again, the consumption or electrical consumption of that chiller by about a third, which will typically save around 1,000 kilowatt hours per year, which, again, on these tariffs, so on this club's current tariff of 25p, would be a saving of £250 a year. Obviously, if they're going on to a new rate, it's a bigger saving. And this piece of tech is pretty low cost and is around £140 to employ. So in this scenario, there's a really quick return on investment. But again, it's fundable, it's green technology, so you would be able to support the cost of it typically by grant funding, or at least explore that. Beer fridges, energy efficient fridges are a definite must. Now that, you know, the additional cost, or £100 or £200 of putting an energy efficient fridge in over and above a run-of-the-mill model, you will save, again, typically around 1,000 kilowatt hours per fridge. A double or triple from a fridge, that was what you would save. Although the return on investment isn't as high as some of the cellar tech, again, it's definitely an area in which you can explore. Again, something that you can explore grant funding for. So if you have the opportunity to reduce the electricity consumption of your fridges by installing new energy efficient fridges, again, something definitely to look into. Voltage optimization, if you're a high energy user through annually, then voltage optimization is something worth exploring. Again, we would look at your consumption and see if it's something beneficial for you. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it is, so we would assess that for you. The cost of the technology is relative to some of the others, quite high, so it's £4,600 typically on a 3-phase meter, which most sports clubs have. So the return on investment is higher, but again, if you're exploring an energy efficient funding bid, it's something well worth looking at because it'll save you around 8 to 12% of your overall energy consumption per year. And that is just done by a transformer controlling the electrical charge that comes into your building, meaning that trying to make sure that all the devices that run optimally off 230 volts receive that charge and don't receive the 245, 255 volt charge that the grid can often supply, and therefore you're over consuming on all your devices, and that's where your saving comes from. Merchant services, typically we see, you know, most sports clubs being overcharged for merchant services. We can just assess your bill, provide you some feedback on that bill, make you aware of whether there are certain things, additional charges that you are being charged that you don't necessarily have to. Things like pence per transaction fees or minimum monthly service charges that you may not necessarily need to be paying. And often we find a 40 to 50% saving for a lot of clubs. And in this scenario, you know, this is a club who's turning over 120 grand through their card machine, so they're making this saving. But you could be turning a lot less over, but you'd still be making a relatively good saving. And like I say, often we'll find a 40 to 50% saving there. Beer waste is something that there's a number of different strategies to solve, and we could find a strategy that suits your club. There's some really low cost, cheap strategies, which is this saving here, that is sort of £35 per line. But you can definitely save in this area, especially post line cleaning, when you're pulling beer through your taps that have got detergent and water in. There's a lot of good tech that can stop your beer waste there. There's a lot of more detailed tech as well, that can mean that you can, rather than clean your lines every week, you might be able to clean your lines every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So again, we can provide feedback on that. Rebates and refunds is effectively looking at, your operations. There's a number of products that you can claim VAT back that people aren't aware of, things like port scratchings and mini cheddars, and a number of different things that we work with a management accountant who can basically assess how you've kind of run the club and see if you can claim some of these things back almost 7 years, and it can be quite a big windfall for a club as a one-off rebate. And ultimately, we'll present this to you, which we'll look at which areas, and in this case, it's dummy data. So in this scenario, we might say to this club, okay, right, maybe we don't worry about bar cooling and voltage optimization, but we prioritize the reducing the energy consumption in your cellar. We prioritize the merchant services, and let's have a chat about the beer waste as well, because these are your priority saving areas. Obviously, then you get this net saving. So this includes the cost of investment. And again, investment cost might not be important to you if you're going down the grant funding route. If you're not going down the grant funding route, you can talk about this as a committee, and you can say, right, okay, if we employ all these things over 3 years, including the cost of investment, we're going to save nearly 10 grand. And it allows just basically a talking point for your committee to run through each of these areas. And then just provide questions back to us, and we can answer any of the questions and chat further on how you might potentially employ any of these strategies. So it'd be great if it's something that you're interested in, give us a shout. We can tell you what we need and we can take it from there. Okay, thanks very much for your time. Bye.